The storm found me before I found the forest, and something in it wanted me alone. When the moon split like broken glass, words burned across it, warning me not to stay. I felt eyes on my back, but when I turned, the only thing staring was the night. Still, I stepped off the safe path and walked deeper, because curiosity is louder than fear. That's when the world broke its rules. Blocks drifted into the sky like gravity had given up. Something moved between the trees, always, just far enough that I could doubt it was real. My torch flickered, shadows stuttering like they were trying to step out of the darkness. Then the wind changed, not blowing past me, but pulling everything in the forest toward me. Through the fog, a red glow pulsed like a heartbeat, buried deep between the trees. My compass spun wild, like the needle was terrified to point where I was supposed to go. The more I walked, the more the trees changed, knots in the bark twisting into watching eyes. The rain froze mid-air for one impossible second, and I realized something else was controlling tonight. Ahead of me, a path of floating gravel hovered over a black pit that had no bottom. Above, a piece of the sky glitched, colors inverted, stars shuffled, like the world was just a broken file. Leaves circled around my head, whispering words I couldn't understand, but somehow felt were about me. That's when I saw the cabin waiting at the forest's edge like it had been expecting me. A trail of candles guided my steps, each flame steady in the wind, daring me to follow. In the upstairs window, 2 squares of light stared down like eyes, then vanished with the next lightning strike. Up close, the front door seemed to breathe, wood swelling and shrinking like the house itself was alive. My hand shook on the handle, but turning back felt more dangerous than whatever waited inside. Before I could decide, the door creaked wide on its own, exhaling cold mist around my feet. The moment I crossed the threshold, the storm outside went distant, like I'd stepped out of the world. Inside, dust and cobwebs clung to everything, as if time had stopped the day someone disappeared. Every portrait on the walls seemed to angle toward me, painted eyes tracking each breath I took. A grandfather clock with no hands still ticked loudly, counting seconds that didn't exist anymore. In the corner, a rocking chair moved on its own, creaking in a rhythm that didn't match the ticking. The only candle guttered, then went out, like someone had leaned in close and blown across my ear. When I struck a match, its light flashed a tall shadow behind me that shouldn't have been there. I spun around, torch raised, but the room was empty. Only my heartbeat refused to calm down. A staircase climbed into darkness above me. Each step, a question I didn't really want answered. I climbed slowly, every stair groaning loud enough to announce me to whatever listened upstairs. At the top, a long hallway waited, lined with doors that looked too patient for my liking. One by one, the knobs along the hall began to twist, as if every room wanted me inside. Then, all at once, they slammed shut. The echo hitting me like a warning I heard too late. I opened the nearest door to a small, tidy child's room that hadn't seen a child in years. A music box on the table began to play on its own, its soft tune horribly out of place. The doll on the bed slowly turned its square head toward me, eyes blank but full of intent. Crayon drawings on the wall showed a tall, dark figure beside a tiny child, both holding hands. Above me, the ceiling bowed downward, wood cracking like something heavy crawled just on the other side, while a own shadow stretched across the room, limbs too long, bending at angles my body couldn't. In the cracked mirror, I watched myself move a second late, like my reflection had to think first. Then the reflection smiled without me, lips curling slowly into something I knew I'd never make. Its hand pressed against the inside of the glass, fingers scraping as if begging to trade places. The mirror exploded outward, shards hanging in the air for a heartbeat before clattering around my feet. When I stumbled back into the hall, it had stretched longer, doors farther apart than they were before. One door opened onto solid stone, no room behind it, like the house had begun erasing itself. Another window should have shown the forest, but instead revealed a floating void full of scattered land. On the wall opposite me, a spider-thin shadow crawled closer, but nothing in the room cast it. Something under the rug caught my foot. Pulling it back revealed a hidden trapdoor leaking purple light. As I lifted it, a ladder disappeared into the dark below. Each rung I touched felt colder than the last. At the bottom, a stone corridor stretched ahead, walls carved with faintly glowing runes that pulsed slowly. Water dripped from the ceiling in a perfect rhythm, its echo too deliberate to be random. I stepped into a carved circle on the floor. The symbols brightened, like they were recognizing me. Putting my ear to the wall, I heard whispers overlapping, as if the stone remembered everyone trapped inside. Around the corner, piles of old skeletons lay half-buried, armor rusted, weapons still clutched in bony hands. Candles lit the tunnel ahead, but as I walked, every flame behind me died, erasing my way back. The next chamber's ceiling was lost in shadow, iron chains dangling down, some swaying as if freshly disturbed. A roar shook the tunnel. When I looked back, my path had collapsed into a choking cloud of dust. Trapped forward, I faced a towering stone door laced with glowing cracks that felt like they were watching me. In front of it, a small pedestal held a pulsing cube, a key that beat like a heart. When I grabbed it, every light in the room dimmed, leaving only the cube's glow on my face. The carvings on the door lit one by one, waking up like an eye, remembering how to open. Cracks split wider, purple light bleeding through as dust and pebbles rained from the shaking stone. Through the growing gap, I saw a cavern beyond, vast and filled with floating purple crystals in the dark. Stepping through, I entered a hall so huge, the ceiling vanished into darkness and pillars stabbed into forever. Obsidian cubes orbited a central point slowly, leaving trails of particles like planets around a dead sun. In the center, a stone platform cracked open. A thin line of blinding light seeping from within. I reached toward it, drawn by something I couldn't name, fingertips tingling before they even touched. The instant I made contact, reality fractured, a shockwave hurling me backward as the world bent around me. I woke floating in a black void, fragments of code and broken textures drifting like snow. Looking down, I saw my body glitch, pieces flickering, pixels tearing loose and snapping back into place. A path of transparent data blocks appeared beneath my feet, forming just fast enough as I walked. Ghostly copies of me stood frozen along the way, each one stuck in a different, terrified expression. Without warning, gravity flipped. The world turned over while I kept falling in the same direction. I landed in a corridor lined with endless doors, all opening and closing like they were breathing. One door led to a broken fragment of forest floating in the void, edges jagged and raw. In the center, a stone platform cracked open. A thin line of blinding light seeping from within. Cubes swarmed together ahead of me, shaping a giant face that studied me before crumbling apart again. Then the void roared, a storm of symbols and blocks rushing at me like wind made of data. I was thrown through shattered biomes, desert, snow, jungle, each ripped away before I could land. I finally hit the ground in a village. The houses twisted and slanted, like they'd melted and rehardened. Villagers stood frozen mid-step, eyes empty. When I touched one, its body crumbled into cracked stone. At the well, the water glowed purple, reflecting not my face, but something standing behind me. The village bell began to swing on its own, each ring sending a slow, heavy shiver through the air. Around me, the houses stretched taller, windows distorting, doors climbing the walls like the world was yawning. On the rooftops, long-limbed shadows patrolled without bodies, moving like spiders across the blocks. In the churches, stained glass, the entity's outline appeared for a heartbeat, towering, then vanished with the thunder. Inside, pews floated sideways, candles burned with black flames, and every surface felt wrong under my feet. Behind the altar, the floor split open into a swirling vertical portal, humming like it recognized me. With nowhere else left to run, I took a breath and jumped straight into the churning darkness. I crashed back into the forest floor. Air returning in a gasp as reality rippled around me. At first it looked like home, but trees were twisted, and faint purple veins pulsed under the soil. My shadow moved before I did, stepping a moment early, then hesitating like it wasn't sure about me. Eyes slowly opened in the bark of nearby trees, dozens of them blinking in quiet, patient unison. Above the canopy, the entity loomed larger than the forest, translucent, its core beating in time with mine. We stared at each other in silence, and I understood. It wasn't gone. It was bound here now. Standing on the cliff, I saw how far the corruption had spread, and how little time this world had. If you want to see what comes next, subscribe to PixUno and be here for part 2. The pixels are still watching, even when this video ends. So don't look away for too long.